Welcome to Fresh Start one-on-one interview platform where we host global leaders for a personal chat. For those who are unfamiliar with us, Fresh Start is an Israeli FoodTech incubator investing in early-stage startups. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tami Meiron, the incubator's CTO. Today, I will host Mr. Valerio Nannini. Valerio is a recognized global innovation leader in the food industry for decades. He regularly engages with academia, accelerators, incubators, venture capitals, and startups, as well as with major strategic partners, with the mission to accelerate corporate growth. Valerio has a comprehensive understanding of digital technology and its commercial applications, a deep knowledge of nutrition-related technologies, and extensive network. Valerio brings a proven track record in fostering a culture of game-changing business transformation. These days, Valerio heads the new proteins unit at Novozymes, the world leader in biological solutions. Prior to that, he was the Senior Vice President, Head of Innovation, Strategies and Performance at Nestlé Global Headquarters. On a personal level, Valerio is one of my inspiring figures. Do you want to know why? Stay tuned and figure out. Valerio loves sports, good Tuscan wines, and summer holidays with his family. Are you ready, Valerio?
Yeah, sure. Really eager to get your questions and try to reply to them. But thanks for the opportunity to share some of my views with all of you there.
Okay, so let's start. I'm sure that the people who are listening to us right now would love to hear the highlights of your own special journey from the very first job that you had.
Well, as you know, when you start young after university, you have a lot of dreams. And I must say I've been able really to fulfill most of them, thanks to my career and thanks to my professional life that together with my private life, I've been able to go hand in hand. And that's a very, how do you call it, a humble experience, but at the same time, very rewarding. I started after university. I've done my bachelor and master degree in chemistry. I started in Nestlé, and that's where I stayed for more than 30 years, working out my career, one step after another, up to the senior vice president role that you just mentioned before. It's been an adventure that brought me into working in all the continents of the world. I've been visiting most of the places of the world. And one of my favorite ones is in Israel, where I started coming there probably 15 years ago. Today, everybody comes to Israel. I was one of the first people coming and visiting and trying to find out what was going on when I was in R&D. I would say my career has been made by three main tracks. One I would call the operations track, where I started. I run 4 factories for Nestlé. I was technical manager. I've been running operations globally. And each one of these jobs have been in different countries. I worked in India, early 90s, which is not the India of today, as you can imagine. It was a very rural India in the south, where I had 2 factory manager roles. And then after that, I moved to Thailand, South Africa, Indonesia, Switzerland, and all this with my family next to me.
Wow.
I have 2 kids grown up now, and they've been following us, me and my wife, in this fantastic journey. And that was basically my career from an operations point of view. In the meantime, I did my MBA in business administration because I always felt that the jacket of operations was a bit tight for me. And I wanted to go to run business. And I always had a business acumen, also in the roles I had with operations, being a very good partner with my business partners in the different roles. So after the global role in operations in a joint venture that Nestlé has with General Mills, I moved to R&D, where I was running the biggest applied research center at that time for Nestlé, which was mainly looking at working with 11 different product categories, but predominantly working on coffee, cereals, and breakfast cereals and beverages, I would call. That was a time where some of the things you're using today have a matrix which is related to me. And that's where innovation started really creeping in under my blood, and under my skin, and brought me then to run a business in Singapore, where I was the managing director of Nestlé Singapore, and I had also regional responsibilities. And even there, innovation was a very important element because we created an innovation-driven organization with roughly 1,500 people. And I was in charge also of regional hubs, which were present in Singapore at that time. I thought my career, and I enjoyed it so much, I had great results. I thought my career was obviously going to continue in the area of food business, but then was called for a new role, which is basically innovation and performance role globally across the group. And that's where I spent a lot of time in Israel, visiting Israel in and out, looking for startups and scouting. And that's where my time with Ilenit became where we started working together at that time, Ilenit Gambesa. So I would say it's been a journey which went like a flash, and it's been amazing. And then I thought it was important to do other things after Nestlé. It came a moment where you probably can give more. And that's where, for a period of time before joining Novozymes, I decided to be myself in the network. And I created my own company, and I done consulting work with 2 or 3 big industrial firms, and I continued to be successful. And then finding this opportunity to work in Novozymes came up to create a startup corporate venture. And this is an extremely fascinating journey, because after all these years of experience, you can really put everything in building a team, and particularly in such an exciting area like the area of alternative proteins.
Of course. And what is the best lesson that you've learned during the years? A lesson that made you even a better person?
I think the best lesson, particularly when you change every 3-4 years, is the fact that you need to be a team with your family. If you want to make sure that things continue and you have the support and you give support to your kids, to your wife, to the people around you, you really need to define roles and responsibility even in your private life. It can be pretty disruptive, but we've been able to stick together, and you need to enjoy everything you do professionally, privately. It starts to mix up, because when you're in a foreign country, you start all over again. You obviously have your job. The bottoms are the same ones. When you are in a Nestlé organization, it's just nice. The noise, which is slightly different, but then the private part becomes important for you to achieve that. So I think it's work and life balance in a real sense. It needs to really work hands in hands and in harmony.
Quite a lesson. As the first global scouter in one of the biggest food companies, if not the biggest, suppose that I'm representing a startup with a promising technology or product. What is the path for a successful collaboration and implementation with a big company?
Well, first of all, is to reach the right person. There's a lot of noise levels in big organizations, and therefore sending an email is probably not the best way. It's networking, basically, trying to get to know the company, trying to reach the company through the best channels. And particularly in these days, there's more and more people in organization which are busy looking at these things. So I would say 10 years ago, when everything started, right after 2008, where the whole startup environment became a bit more rampant, right, and progressively moved 10, 12 years ago, it was more difficult. But today you have accelerators, incubators. So companies all have their nose in the areas that they think is the best for them, or the fields that are best for them. But you could come and meet maybe Nestlé in an agricultural startup, but maybe Nestlé is not the right company. It might be another company, the best one. So depending on what is your idea and what you want to bring, you need to address it through the right people and through the right subject matter. And I think you need to do your homework. through entities like the one you're running to be mentored a bit how to approach them. Because the big risk is that it becomes, we had 1,500 ideas coming, unsolicited offers, as we call them, every year. So it's clear that each one of them had a very little span of attention, very little. And some of them were not even considered. And maybe they were great ideas and we lost them because of that. So really, the right channel, the right people, do your proper network in order you can address, bring your idea in the best way possible that can create a minute of attention that comes out of the noise level that big corporates have.
This was insightful, definitely. And in your perspective, Valerio, what are the most interesting areas of interest in the FoodTech today, and why?
I would say that probably the biggest, the three areas which are really, I would say, in the big area of interest, not for me, but in general for everybody. One is obviously the whole area of proteins. And I don't refer only to alternative proteins, but the fact that we are going to have a shortage of proteins over between now and 2050, we're doubling population. I think you guys in Israel have been always working with scarce resources, but now the whole world will have to do that. So it's a big call to action, not necessary to replace the existing proteins, but to complement them in order that we can feed the planet. Today, we live in this type of, contradictory world where on one side we have a lot of obese people, and on the other side we have malnutrition. And proteins are an important level that play in that type of field. Some of the solutions we start seeing today are not probably going to be either the optimum solutions. Some are trying to imitate existing proteins, and that's basically been what I call the generation 1. We'll see evolution on what we call generation 2, where specific type of candidate of proteins which are good for you will need also to be created. And that's why we have to have a look at biotech. I know there's some areas of debate, GMO, non-GMO, but biotech can give a lot of answers which are sustainable, which are really targeted for us as human beings with what we need, and can at the same time ease out the growth that otherwise would require for animals, which we know is unsustainable at the same time, and for animal welfare, for the other type of thing. So that's one area. The other area is the whole area of health and wellness. And we call about functional nutrition. We are recognizing that we need to eat better. We need to feed ourselves better. So it's not a question of density. It's a question of nutrition density. Are we having the right ingredients? Are we having the right minerals, proteins, amino acids? And the third area related to that is the microbiome. The whole microbiome area is just at the beginning. You guys with the Weizmann Institute, the two experts, Aaron and Aaron there, are in the forefront of this. And the fact that personalization is really related to who we are, and this axis between brain and the gut is a really important one. These three areas, I would say, are the areas which are where you see a lot of the investments are going today.
Okay. And in light of your, let's call it special career, any personal tips or thoughts for a young person at the beginning of the journey?
I think just look in front of your nose. Don't look too far. In the sense that you should have obviously an ambition in life, and maybe that's the end game you want to have. But I remember I was working in supply chain in Nestlé, and I said, oh, my dream is to become a factory manager. Then I became a factory manager, and then my dream is to have a bigger factory. And try to take the shortcut, put yourself in difficult situations. Because a difficult situation, I tell you, being in India early 90s was not an easy situation. No phone, no internet, no radio, no TV.
Wow.
Difficult, right? But that makes you stronger. And also, if you're able to succeed in a difficult situation, it puts you in the highlights for organization to see you, right? And this is valid always in life. So try to take the shortcuts, particularly when you're younger and you don't have a lot of constraints with the family. Take a difficult assignment and aim to one step after another to the next step. Because if you're good, people will see it. And if you're good, you will achieve great results. If you're in a difficult situation, you get out of trouble, you will be visible to everybody, and everybody will start talking to you. If people talk about you, that's a way of success. So become extremely attractive through the things that you do.
Definitely agree. Could you share your personal take on Israel, especially with the highlights on the FoodTech?
Yeah, well, look, I have a very, very good relationship with the Israel ecosystem and with Israel in general. Reason is,
I know.
First of all, I don't know, but I'd love to elaborate why. Because first of all, I think there's a lot of similitudes between. I'm Italian. I'm from Florence.
Right.
Culturally, there's a lot of similitudes. Family is important. Quality of life is important, and probably the fact that there's a lot of sun, there's a lot of light, and people enjoy because you know very well. You told me before you had a bit of an event yesterday, and you enjoy because you never know when that enjoyment stops, right? So culture is there's a good match, and secondly, I think it's a startup nation. It's a place where things are moving extremely fast, where if you're looking for something, if you have the connections, you can find it. Now, many people come to Israel and have no connections and go to Israel and leave Israel with empty hands. I think the element of connection, the so-called relationships are very important to be able to navigate properly the ecosystem and not waste time. The fact that you have serial entrepreneurs, which could mentor young entrepreneurs, is important. I find fascinating your university system that happens only a bit later in stage in life because of the military service, and then creates people which are more mature and are able to pursue their career in a better way. So besides having a lot of friends there, which is always good, I think there's some characteristics where you put together talent, culture, and capital. The very few places in the world where you have it, the US is certainly a place where it is. You have the talent because you have great university and great education system. You have the culture because of what we said before, and you have the capital because there's a lot of people which are prepared to put capital in early stage startups. Even the Israeli authority, innovation authority, is putting a lot of money out there to further push this. And Israel is extremely connected with the rest of the world. So you go there and you find a lot of other connection. But as I said, not an easy place if you just go as a tourist and pretend to do innovation. That doesn't happen. You need to have friends there.
Okay, so I think now we are prepared to move on to the exciting part of our conversation. It's a ping pong intuitive short questionnaire. So Valerio, try to answer shortly and intuitively. It's fun. Ready?
Fine, ready.
What makes you happy?
Having fun.
What is your favorite song?
My favorite song, Imagine, of the Beatles.
Wow, one of my favorites as well. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food is obviously pasta with whatever, right?
I wonder why. So let's imagine that you're going to have pasta for dinner. Who would you like to invite to that dinner? It could be anyone.
My wife.
Good. Let's invite your wife. And now, suppose that heaven exists. What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You've done good to the world, and that's why you deserve to be here.
Nice. So Valerio, we're done. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights with us. Looking forward to our next collaboration.
Sure.
Bye.
Take care, and thanks a million. Ciao.
Bye-bye.